Welcome back, guys. I'm Zell, and today it's time to look at this Spyderco Para 3. Alright, this Para 3, of course, is a smaller version of the Paramilitary 2, but we're going to leave that knife aside today, and we're going to focus on this one. What do we get? We've got G10 handle scales with a light texturing on them, enough to get a grip, but not enough to really tear up your pants, which is rather nice. And we have a nice slight chamfer all the way around the G10, which feels really warm and happy in your hand. And we've got good Spyderco hardware. It's of course Loctited, just like all Spydercos seem to be, but you know, at least they give us good hardware. And a huge lanyard tube. Kind of a comically huge lanyard tube for this little knife. But, you know, at least your 550 will go through there plenty easy enough. Maybe squeeze 2 through there if you wanted to. And we are drilled for tip up, tip down, left or right hand carry. As we roll around to the back of the knife, we can see we have a compression lock. And fairly standard, no frills spacer. And our big barrel for our lanyard tube. And we have this little pin here, and this is our stop pin, and there's a lot of fuss about this stop pin, but it is removable. What it is it's a pin that has a larger diameter in the middle and smaller diameters on either end, and it fits, the smaller diameter parts fit through the liner and into the G10 out here on either side. And as we roll it around to the top, you can see this thing's nicely centered. Got a nice big old thick blade in there at about 3.7 millimeters. And on to the other side, we've got a standard size Spyderco pocket clip. I think this was a mistake. We'll talk about that here pretty soon. And, you know, everything just looks really good. It really looks like they took a Paramilitary 2 and left it in the dryer too long. Anyhow, our overall length closed is about 4.3 inches with a handle thickness of about 0.45 and a closed height of 1.66. So it's not a super small knife, but it is smaller than your standard 3.5 inch blade EDC knife. And let's get some comparison out of the way. And we've got, of course, our Rat Model 1 and our Buck 110. It's, of course, smaller and lighter than either one of those by quite a bit. In fact, it only weighs 3.42 ounces, so it's a very light knife for being a heavy-duty one. But it doesn't weigh as little as the Delica does. Now, the Delica is a light-duty EDC knife, but this thing only weighs about 2.5 ounces, so almost an ounce less than your Para 3. So something to take into consideration. And by request, we've got a couple more to stick out here. We've got a Manix 2 lightweight and a Sage 3. And really these are all somewhat comparable, especially these two are comparable in size. And if I had a Sage 5, which I don't, the Sage 5 is a little smaller than our Sage 3 and would be just a smidge smaller than our Para 3. But overall, they're fairly comparable. But these do have the leaf-shaped blade, and because of the leaf-shaped blade, they, of course, take up more room in your pocket. They've got that pancake effect. Anyhow, let's go ahead and get this thing in the Levi's and see how that works out. Alright, and down in the Levi's we go. And this is one of my complaints. See how much knife you've got sticking out there? I'm not one to complain about a lot of knives sticking out, but that is enough, and it does get caught on things. Don't know why. That's still a mystery as to why some knives, even with a similar shape and similar thickness, get caught on things and others don't. But this one does. And I've got a set of calipers here so we can see just how far it sticks out. So we're right at about an inch, slightly under maybe. And the Paramilitary 2, with its design, it's about 3/4 of an inch or so that sticks out. 1/4 of an inch makes a difference though. Anyhow, I have remedied this problem with a MXG Gear fold-over pocket clip. Now, I didn't buy this specifically for this knife, but it's a standard 3-hole Spyderco. Whenever you do that, the knife slides down in there and almost disappears. You've got a little bit sticking up right there to stick your lanyard through and have it sticking out above your pocket, but I prefer the slightly deeper carry clip for several reasons that we'll get to as we move along. And looking at our blade, now here's where Spyderco did a pretty darn good job. We've got a nice slab of S30V, full flat ground, Spidey drop point, got a little jimping up the thumb ramp, a little jimping in our forward finger choil, and it's ground really well. You know, Spyderco always does a good job of that. And I didn't sharpen this one because the edge from Spyderco was really good, and essentially I just didn't have time. And if it's got a good edge on it, you know, all I'm doing is sharpening it up to make it look pretty. So this one worked really well right out of the box. And, you know, it is thick though. We're at 3.7 millimeter, but it's full flat ground, so it slices well. 2.9 inches is what I got on my calipers for total blade length, and 2.65 for your edge length because part of it's taken up with your forward finger choil. And from here we'll go to our pause and read card, and I'll be right back with you. Alright, as far as the mechanical bits here, we've got a pivot that's very much like the Paramilitary 2. We got a sleeve and 2 torque screws, some phosphor bronze bushings down in there, and it works just as good as a Paramilitary 2 pivot. So it's all good there. The lock mechanism is a compression lock, and for those of you that don't know what a compression lock does, you see this section of liner right here. Whenever we go to open the knife and it locks up, that little piece flops out. Now, unlike a liner lock where this piece goes directly against the tang of the knife, this piece of liner goes in between a shelf on the blade, on the bad tang of the blade, and this stop pin. See, it's way down in there. And what that causes is if you want to close this knife while the lock is engaged, well, one, you can't do it because it's locked, but most importantly, you would have to either bend the heck out of that liner or lift this stop pin out of the knife. And the stop pin is going through the liners and through the G10. So it's going to be very, very tough. It's a very secure lock. I mean, is it a triad lock? Well, no. But it's a lock mechanism that works a lot smoother than any back lock or triad lock. So, works rather well. I like it. It is not the greatest thing for a left-handed person. You know, I do hear that some lefties like it, but if you're left-handed, you get it there and then you have to reach up and close it. You might as well get a back lock. You know, if you're right-handed, you know, it works as good as an axis lock. So, very nice there. Now, whenever we get to ergonomics, Spyderco did some great things. This thing is essentially just like your Paramilitary 2. If you stick the calipers on it, there isn't a lot of difference between the two where your hands go. Now, there are some slight differences. We got a 60-40 choil here, and on the other one, it's more of, on the Paramilitary 2, it's more of a 50-50. But most of the measurements match up very favorably and almost identical. So you get all those good ergonomics. Do anything you need to with the knife. In fact, in your reverse grip, it may even be a little better than your Paramilitary 2. But overall, just like most Spydercos, you're in good shape with ergonomics. And good shape with action, too. You know, if you're a right-hander, it does everything just like it should. Left-hander, well, you know, so I hear some of you guys like these, and I don't understand why, but, It's good, but it's not as good as it is for a righty. Anyhow, the action works very well. The pivot is very free with no movement in it. It locks up good and solid, just like it should. So overall, the ergonomics and the action are better than most non-bearing knives. And, you know, that's a beautiful thing. It's just excellent. My conclusion on this guy, though, is kind of tough. It is a great knife. If Spyderco had come out with this several years ago and not the Paramilitary 2, every one of us would have one. We'd be looking around going, we don't need that 3.5 inch blade, or we don't need any of these other whatever things. That Paramilitary 2, or that Para 3, that is the knife to have. Unfortunately, they didn't. They brought us the Paramilitary 2 first, and unless you want a blade that's 3 inches or less, or you live in a place where legally you have to carry that 3 inch or less blade, I don't see a place for this knife. It sticks too far out of the pocket with the stock pocket clip. You lose a 1/2 inch of blade, almost a 1/2 inch of blade, with no gains that I can see anywhere except for that bit of chamfering on the G10, but I would assume that Spyderco will bring that to the next version of the Paramilitary 2. So that's kind of my take on it. This one won't stay around in my collection very long unless I have some comparison videos or something like that to do with it, because it just doesn't have a spot for me. It may have the perfect place in your rotation. It may be the perfect single pocket knife for you. But one thing we forgot to do was talk about how that pocket clip hits you in the hand, and you're going to want to see this. Whenever you stick this thing in your hand, you've got all those good ergonomics. Everything is great. But this thing right here pokes me right there. I don't like it. Move the knife back out of that forward finger choil, and now it pokes me right here. Don't like that either. It's this pocket clip is too long for the body of the knife. However, you put a shorter pocket clip on here and have that knife sticking out that far, you run even more risk of getting caught on something and lifting the knife out of your pocket. So with Spyderco's stock hourglass pocket clip, the knife is not stellar. Now, if you move to that MX G-Gear pocket clip I had out here a minute ago, everything is just 1,000% better, but then you're adding another 25 or 30 bucks to the knife, and you're looking at a $150 small pocket knife. Anyhow, guys, this is a great knife. It's built extremely well, and yeah, I do like it. But like I said, it's not going to stick around in my collection long because of the Paramilitary 2. Anyhow, guys, I really appreciate you stopping by and talking knives with me for a little while and getting a look at the Para 3. It is an excellent knife. It just doesn't have a home for me. Anyhow, guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.